such an honor and a privilege to have the opportunity to speak to the people I do on this show. They come from varied backgrounds, but they all have a keen interest in helping others to live well. They are at different stages and places in their own well-being journey, and they all have beautiful insight and details about how they came to be where they are today. Ultimately, I hope that this podcast can be a source of inspiration and insight for you along your own health journey. It is my humble opinion that taking care of your body is your greatest responsibility. A great quote that I really love from Maria Popova is, "The body is the place, the only place where we live. It is where we experience time. It is where we heal from emotional trauma. It is the seat of consciousness, without which there is nothing." On this week's show, I speak with Charlie Tunmore. Charlie is currently studying to be a health coach at the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. His greatest aim is to help people to understand how to make health work for them on a daily basis. Charlie is also a yoga studio manager, a jiu-jitsu purple belt, and the host of a really brilliant podcast called The Practice of Health, where he empowers you to take ownership of your own health. He explores loads of different topics, including nutrition, movement, sleep, thinking, hydration, breathing, and much more, some of which we get into on this week's show as well. Charlie's podcast is really brilliant. It's practical, it's accessible, and he will encourage you to even start practicing some of the techniques as you're listening to the podcast. I hope you enjoy our conversation as much as I did. Excellent. Hey Charlie, how's it going?
I'm doing really good, thanks. How are you?
Excellent. I'm really well, thank you. I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for coming and chatting with me on the show today. It's such an honor to have you here, and I'm really looking forward to our chat.
No worries. I'm really excited about today and getting to know you a bit more. So looking forward to it.
Excellent. So I thought we'd kick it off just by really just going straight in there and you telling us a little bit about your background and what inspired you on the journey that you're on now, and what kind of motivates you to show up in the world in the way that you do.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I guess for me, first of all, my dad was an osteopath, and that's, I guess, where I got my interest and love for all things health, whether it's kind of traditional ancestral ideas or more kind of the latest scientific breakthroughs. So with him kind of being an osteopath and me kind of growing up in that house, I really kind of had an appreciation of kind of him and helping to support people and just different modalities of health, whether it's osteopath or doctors or therapists, acupuncture. So that really, I guess, sparked my curiosity. And I kind of always, I guess, from that point, being, I guess, a child, teenager, had an interest in health, but that was always on the side, as always kind of more of a passion. Didn't really know how I could turn it into some kind of work or helping to support people. So I guess like most people, I took the kind of normal route, went to university, did something very different to what I'm doing now. I did history and politics. So it was a great experience, and I kind of learned a lot about how to question things and how to form my own opinions. But I guess for me, one of the main things I got from university was discovering jiu-jitsu. And I've always been interested in martial arts. But if anyone doesn't know, jiu-jitsu is a martial art combat sport of grappling. If you've seen any kind of UFC or mixed martial arts, it's the ground game. So there's no striking or punching, but you would kind of submit someone in a competition, for example, using technique, leverage, things like arm locks, leg locks, chokes. And there's a lot of influences between, I guess, like judo, wrestling, other various sports. So I kind of fell in love with, martial arts from there. And that really helped me, I guess, form a community of people that were kind of like-minded in health, interested in learning about nutrition and movement and sleep and various things like that. So that kind of really, I guess, sparked my curiosity in health, but I still really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I kind of followed, I guess, after university, exploring different kind of paths. And I was like vegan for 3 years. And that kind of really, I'm really glad I did that. I had kind of break for animal products. I now kind of incorporate kind of some animal products in my diet, kind of really good high quality ones. And I feel, for me personally, a lot better having animal products, but it was good, I think, me to test out different diets and see kind of what works for me and what doesn't work. Um, and I was working for various kind of human rights groups for a few years in London, kind of using my degree, and I was kind of wanting to do something that supported the people. And I liked what I did, but it wasn't things to do with health and what really kind of like fueled me. And I had I guess on one side out of work, I was doing all these things like yoga or martial arts or helping people with nutrition in various ways. And in my kind of own, I guess, 9 to 5 job was very much admin based kind of job. And in the end, I was thinking about this last week. I had this kind of moment where I went to, I don't know if you've done it before, had a flotation tank experience
Oh
or
yeah, yeah.
isolation tank. Yeah. So I've done a few of them now and I really love them. It's kind of, I guess, a lot of people use it as a way to meditate, a way to kind of get really into kind of relaxed, I guess, flow state. So I was doing one of them in London, like kind of came out and they have like a really nice, relaxed kind of chill out area. And there was a book that was there in the chill out area that was kind of, I guess, the top 100 places to try to practice to work in London, like health and wellness spaces, like yoga studios, gyms, nutrition companies, things like that. And I kind of started to read that book. And in the end, I kind of took photographs of every single page of that book and then went home and really started to realize that I wanted to work in that kind of world, like wellness. And I was very fortunate that Troy Yoga Shoreditch was just about to open at that time. I kind of, managed to get a job there. And that was probably one of the most, just incredible kind of experiences being in that environment. I guess, being a yoga teacher, just the people you meet in the yoga studio and the experiences you get from in that environment, really life changing. Like, I kind of did a Vipassana retreat from just someone that one of my friends who just didn't come in for 10 days to the studio, and asked him, where have you been? He said, I've been to Vipassana. I had no idea what that was or anything about it, but I did that, and that was kind of really informative and just made me really think about how the mind works and how, I guess, you're not your thoughts, you're the person observing your thoughts, and really kind of thinking about meditation and all the great things that come with it. And eventually I managed to be assistant manager at Troy Yoga Camden, and just sort of able to kind of be able to practice all different types of yoga, work with lots of different people who do international workshops and coming in. And it was just a great experience, kind of a lot about myself and just the different aspects of health. And it was great. I guess it really informs what I do now, because of the amount of people I kind of spoke to on a day-to-day basis. That's what I really liked, and kind of the people engagement and everyone coming, you could kind of see the energy levels before yoga and after yoga, and just real seeing how to support people and how to, I guess, communicate with people on different levels depending on how they're feeling, how their emotions are. And through that time, I also had various experiences with like plant medicines and doing a number of ceremonies, and that, and plus the passion, really kind of, I guess, helped me to understand myself more, being more vulnerable, be able to kind of, I guess, express more emotions, which I found, I guess, like a lot of, say, my male friends maybe find it hard to do. So that really helped me in my kind of health journey. And then now I've been at Yoga Rise Peck, and managing that kind of space for about a year and a half. And the same thing, it's just amazing. I couldn't imagine work anywhere else. Just a great space of like-minded people who kind of want to support people and interested in yoga and things like that. And then COVID strike, and then I guess, like most people, had kind of thoughts about what they were doing and where they wanted to go to. And I was lucky that I was listening to a podcast at the start when kind of COVID happened about health coaching, and I'd never really heard that concept before and what it was. It's still quite a new thing. And as I was furloughed from Yoga Rise and had a lot of free time in my hands, I kind of said, why not do kind of a foundation course, like a 3-month course. I did that, like an online kind of 3-month course with the Czech Institute, and that was really good kind of grounding and various ideas to do with health. And then September last year, I started kind of a 1-year qualification to be a health coach. So that's kind of, it's a long story, but I've always been interested in things like alternative health and those kind of areas, but just didn't know how to really use that, and how to kind of use that in my own life and help other people with that. So I'm just really glad that I found health coaching.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. And I think that's a really important thing to note as well, this kind of like unfolding of experiences and your own journey and what you pick up along the way, and that informs the kind of direction you nearly for me anyway, I don't always know exactly where I'm, say, going, but if you can be kind of clear or have clarity in this moment, and all this stuff that we do, all these practices really helps to cultivate that, then it's almost like you have a better sense of what the next thing is. It just kind of builds together, and then you can kind of see from there. I love that. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing that. It's really interesting as well. I don't know, you'd never thought of going down the path of osteopathy, or
I yeah, had like a running joke in my family that I was going to be like the second generation of being an osteopath and carry that kind of lineage down. But I was never really good at science at school. I never really, and I guess, to do osteopath or be a doctor, you need kind of, a lot of those kind of skills and experience. But I was always more interested in like humanities and history and various things that I'm writing. And so it just never really, dawned on me until kind of later on. Obviously, I think if I, looking back at hindsight, it would have been great to have done like maybe a 3-year like nutrition university degree, things like that. But yeah, at the time I just wasn't. I was interested about health, but I just wasn't aware that I would wanted to do being an osteopath. And yeah.
right. But it's interesting because, like, I'd say you're going down the route of science now anyway. Like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's kind of one big loop. I kind of like went away from it for ages and just wanted to do something completely different. Maybe I guess just didn't want to be like my dad or just do something different, and then kind of
Yeah.
come back. Now I speak to my dad regularly because he's got so much like 40 years experience of being an osteopath, and that really helps me in what I'm doing now, especially more like how to chat with people, especially if they've got a certain illness or various things. So I'm really trying to learn all that I can from him now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's so much you said there. I might go back to a few things in a
Yeah.
while, but just to kind of lead on from there, and I guess just in case people maybe don't know, or I mean, there's such a wide variety of coaches out there. I guess, could you speak a little bit to what exactly a health coach is?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a kind of a new concept, and it's kind of bigger in America. But a lot of people, I didn't know what it was a year ago, so a lot of people I speak to don't know what it is. But my kind of definition is someone who helps people to understand how to make health work for them on a daily basis, and that can be quite broad. I kind of look at health, I guess, foundations of health, which I've learned from my courses, being sleep, movement, nutrition, hydration, breathing, and thoughts, and kind of all of them encompass various things to do with health. If you have those kind of 6 foundations, you're probably doing pretty well. But it is quite a broad topic, and for me, it's kind of, I guess, what you see more in America. There's a lot of health coaches working in doctors' practices, and for example, the doctor would give the client or the patient the why of they've got type 2 diabetes, or they've got really high levels of stress, for example, and the health coach would be there to give them how to implement to lose weight or to reduce sleep, reduce stress, or increase sleep, and just kind of help them along. Because I know a lot of people, myself included, had gone to the doctor in the past and had to change things, but unsure like with diet or lifestyle how to do that on a regular basis. So that's kind of what my role is, and I'm kind of really excited to learn more about it and help people. But yeah, it's kind of, I guess, long sustainable change rather than kind of quick fixes like 4-week diets, things like that. It's about kind of, it could be a 3-month program, a 6-month program, working with people to help with their health goals, health concerns. But yeah, it's still a relatively new concept, and it's still, I hope in the future that we have more spaces in London where you have like health spaces where you have like a health coach, movement specialist, a yoga teacher, a therapist, all these different people working collaboratively together, and different health professionals. But that's what really excites me, and there's definitely more of that in America, and even in like Hackney where I live, there's a holistic health space, which is kind of that kind of concept. So I see it popping up everywhere in London a little bit, but I hope that it's
Yeah.
increased in the future. So.
Absolutely. I've spoken to a few people who talk about this idea, and I do feel like it's something that's really permeating our kind of communities here as well. So hopefully it will take off, because it sounds like that's the ideal scenario, right? Like, I mean, yeah, you go to your doctor, you get some really important information, but what do you do with that, and where do you go, and how do you manage that? And they don't have time to give you all the background, and maybe that's not their primary interest as well. They're kind of like emergency situation people, and then from there you need you
Yeah.
need other people to support you in your health journey. And I guess it's interesting as well because, like, talking back to your journey, you've done all these things, like everything that you talk about in these, I guess it's the 6 foundations of health.
Yeah.
You've kind of discovered those on your own path, and now it's like, oh, okay, wow, there's this way to like bring that all together and share it with other people in this very organized kind of way, I suppose, systematic in a way, right? It's
Yeah, I think I've now got more of like the science and the theory behind it, and I'm not like perfect myself. I've still got loads of health concerns and issues with myself, like everyone does. But one of the kind of main messages that I got from my, I guess, health coach qualification on what I'm doing now is it's not about you being perfect. You might just be a few steps ahead of someone like yourself, like what I was doing 5 years ago, for example. And if I had someone like me 5 years in the future, just helping them with like digestion for me was a big thing, like trying to improve IBS and just sleep and stress and those kind of things. I think could be kind of really useful. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I had a similar thing, like I've been on this journey to, I guess, uh improve my own health, right? So and that's really helped me to understand and relate to others, and I don't think you have a good concept of being able to help others unless you've gone through that sort of yourself. It's yeah, it's a really interesting process, and you could sort of speed things up for people. Like, I mean, if I had some of the information I have now years ago, that would be wonderful. But again, I could have never, I wouldn't have even looked for the information if I
Yeah.
back then. um I guess, could you go into a bit more detail about the 6 foundations of health, and why it's so important, these 6 things, why you think that
Yeah.
is?
So how do I put it? I think with all of them, they kind of all interlink together. And I mean, sleep is one of the main things. I mean, I try and look a lot at things like free medicine to help people. So a lot of different ideas, principles to do with health that are free or low cost. And that's something I'm really passionate about kind of giving to people. Obviously, there's loads of high-tech gadgets, really expensive things you can do. And a lot of them are great, but you don't necessarily need to do them. And looking at kind of the basics, like sleep, for example, which can be free or is free, and how much that influences your whole health. I think it kind of is a massive thing. And same with movement, it can be free, it can be low cost, and just all these kind of concepts together coming together to really support people. One of the best quotes I like from my course, Joshua, who's the head of kind of teaching there, says you can eat all the kale in the world, but if your relationships aren't great, then you're not going to be truly healthy. And I really like that in a sense. I thought beforehand when I was at uni or beforehand I would just had good nutrition maybe or moved a lot, but then maybe didn't have good relationships. And just thinking about health holistically, it's not just about the food in your plate, it's thinking about other kind of areas of your life and how they all interlink together. Um, and I think it's just good to explain people kind of what ideas about health are and give them kind of principles to do that. Because if I do a 6-month program with someone, help them out, I'm not going to be there for the rest of their life. So I really want to empower them, work together collaboratively, and just make sure by the end of it, they know, how to eat well, what works for them, because of the concept like bio-individuality. Not everyone's different. Like what works for me diet-wise could be very different to what works for you. Yeah, things like your ancestry, your microbiome, your genetics, all these different factors come into play. So I think it's just important to look at all those kind of 6 things. I mean, thoughts, your thinking, your mental health. I mean, in the last 10, 20 years, how much that's is a great thing, how much there's more, I guess, awareness of that and how important it is. And in my own life, just really thinking about breathing and that kind of with yoga, I guess, and meditation, and just the stress, all these kind of things can seem quite basic and simple, but sometimes the most simple things are the most effective things. If you can kind of drink more water, breathe more, have good sleep, eat a wide range of whole nutritious food, comes from the ground, whether that's more vegetarian, whether that's more paleo, whether kind of works with your kind of lifestyle. I think that can be a really good kind of foundation. Then after you've got those in place, then you can be more, I guess, tweak the more specifics. If you've got a goal about running a marathon, for example, or whatever it is, then we can go into the specifics. But I think the kind of 6 foundations are really good as a starting point to help people. and the health journey.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the puzzle pieces, right? You can't you need all of them to get the full picture and get a better sense of yourself and how your mechanism works, right? Like
Yeah.
I think that's so interesting about everybody's nutrition needs are completely different, you know, and that's why it's so I studied nutrition for a couple of years,
Mm.
uh good few years back, and I was just so like almost disheartened by it at the time because I was like, this doesn't work for everyone. You know, it's like, what do you do with that? Like, you know, we know the basic things are really good, but that again is not gonna be beneficial for everyone. And yeah, it's really and it's constantly changing as well.
Mm.
And there's diet fads and so on and so forth. And it's yeah, what we think is good now may not be good in whatever X amount of years. And so I guess that for me that was a bit like, oh, okay. I was taken aback by it, and I guess that's why I like the body more and anatomy, and it's more like, okay, I can learn what this is, and this principle pretty much holds true for forever. So for me personally anyway. But it's interesting as well what you said there, and the microbiome and the connection there to our sleep and our hormones and our mood, right? So
Yeah.
that's like a pretty major puzzle piece, I would say. Like I think most of our serotonin, like 90% of it is like produced in
Yeah.
our gut. So like that has an impact on all of these things we're talking about. So I think that's probably a great place to start from if you're going to sort of make some changes, right? I wonder if you could speak a little bit about what the microbiome is and a little bit more detail on what you've
Yeah,
experienced
yeah,
with
of
it.
course. Yes, I guess the microbiome is all the genetic material for the billions of microbes in our body. And as you said, most of them are in our gut. And yeah, you said there's like, it helps regulate our mood, all the bacteria in our gut, 90 to 95% of serotonin. Obviously helps to digest food, helps us with either weight gain or weight loss. And it's just, yeah, a really important foundation of health. A lot of people, because of stress, lack of sleep, have issues like IBS or various things like that. The strange thing happened a few weeks ago, about a month ago now, I was starting to really learn about gut health. And that week I had appendicitis. It was just a really kind of weird turn of events. I was like learning about all these things to do with like probiotics and prebiotics, things like that. And then I had to go to the hospital because I had an issue in my gut. And luckily I didn't need surgery. It was kind of just inflamed my appendix, and I just needed antibiotics for a week. But I was busy in the hospital, kind of like ordering some probiotics to come back. So when I got back home, I could start that. And so that was kind of really, yeah, weird moment where things I was literally learning that week, I had to implement in my own life, and just, yeah, things like having a wide range. I think whole food is kind of the main thing I'd say. If you have any antibiotics treatment or issues with gut, obviously you can take probiotic and prebiotic foods, but just in general, kind of what you're feeding the bacteria in your gut. Is it kind of really highly refined carbs and sugar, or is it kind of just nutrient dense vegetables, fruit, or animal products if you eat that? And just really thinking about that. And obviously fermented food is a big thing in the last kind of like 5 to 10 years. And it's quite easy to make your own sauerkraut or kimchi and just really help to give your gut the good bacteria that it needs. And supplements can be great. And I'm taking supplements at the moment because of antibiotics, but they're not kind of necessary. And it's kind of more if you have some kind of, yeah, health issue that you really kind of want to help. Um, and what kind of learned recently as well is how much the microbiome, how much the gut is affected by, for example, your upbringing, like the way you were born, or your stress, your diet, genetics. All these things were factors. So I think it's really important. And the people I've spoken to already, when I've done like practice health coach sessions, how many of them have issues to do with the gut, and how many of them are stressed, have mental health issues, and how it all kind of interlinks together. I think it's a really good concept to explain to people as an idea of that we're not all parts of our body, they're not separate, they all interlink together. If there's something kind of an issue with our gut or with another part of the body, it probably relates to another area. I'm sure you see that a lot with your work as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and sauerkraut and kimchi are so easy to make. I have like a massive jar on the go all the time, just kind of in consistent sort of
amazing.
rotation. It's the easiest thing to make, and it's super tasty. And yeah, I'm all behind fermented foods and kombucha as well. We have a
Mm,
massive jar of kombucha going. It's
brilliant.
super vinegary, the one you make yourself. You go to the shop and you're like, you
Yeah,
buy a bottle of it and it's like fizzy
yeah.
sweet water, which is lovely. But yeah, the one you make yourself is really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something I see a lot is like that issue with sleep as well, and how people navigate that is really challenging, I think, because if you're not getting the sleep, then your sort of ability to decide what is good for you to eat is totally out of whack.
Yeah.
Your even ability to sort of judge, I guess, decisions, and everything is affected by poor sleep. And how do you regulate that, and how do you come back to good sleeping patterns? That's
Yeah.
that's a really tough question, because then that's affecting your gut health and everything. It's
100%.
yeah, it's a really tough one. I must find a sleep expert to
Yeah.
interview. um I guess the next thing I'd love to chat to you a bit about is kind of going back to your initial journey into this way of being in the world, is this practice of jujitsu and the discipline around that, because I think there's something really important about cultivating some kind of discipline in your life, and it's definitely something that really I guess sparked my own journey into taking care of my health. And I guess prior to finding yoga, for me, I didn't really have any kind of discipline, and I would pick something up and drop it, and that was kind of the way I just existed. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll try this out, try that out. But for some reason, yoga had some kind of hook for me that made me want to come back to it again and again and again. And that has had a huge knock-on effect on all other areas of my life. I wonder if you could speak a little bit about that and in your experience of that through jiu-jitsu, perhaps.
I feel the same way as you. I didn't really have any kind of practice or sport growing up. I was terrible at sports growing up and didn't really have anything like that. And then when I found jiu-jitsu, I was like, oh, okay, I just really fell in love with it and felt I could do this for the rest of my life as a practice and kind of improve and kind of get better. Um, I guess with jiu-jitsu, there's kind of a saying that when you start, you're a white belt, and there's different kind of belts. You're going to go white, blue, purple, brown, black. And I kind of use that in other parts of my life now, that when you start anything, you're a white belt. You're going to suck. You're going to be terrible. You're going to fail. You're going to make mistakes, all of this stuff. Like what I'm with my podcast now with health coaching, I'm still relatively new. I'm still white belt. But I know that if I put the time in, I'm consistent, I kind of do a lot of hard work and ask for help, support people around me, I know I'm going to eventually get better. Um, and this is really going to help me in all aspects of my life. With jiu-jitsu, I kind of know that if I train regularly, it kind of builds momentum and I can kind of see improvements in myself. It's really built like confidence in myself, and it's just fun. Like I feel like now I've got to a level, I've done it for about 6 years, that was still so much more to learn, but it feels like I'm playing with my friends now. It's like I got to that stage where it's just fun. I kind of obviously can't do it at the moment because of COVID, but hopefully when we come back, it'll be good to do it again. But it's just a nice way to express yourself. And often if you're, I guess, sparring or training with someone who's a similar level, it almost feels like a dance. Both of you maybe aren't going 100% with each other and trying to sort of smit each other. You might be going 50% and just really kind of, there's no one right way. Like a lot of martial arts, there's no right way to move. You kind of just intertwining with each other and kind of like moving about and how to control them. And it's just, it's not often, I found personally in my life, that you get so close to so many people and so intimate that, you know, could be sparring with maybe 30 people, 20, 30 people some nights, and just that kind of human connection you get, which I don't personally get in other areas of my life. And usually, especially in London, everyone's very formal. You might shake hands, might give a hug, but to really kind of be that close to so many people and just sort of your best friends, but then for 5 minutes you're trying to kill each other almost. Then afterwards you just sort of like slap hands and you're friends again. It's kind of it's a weird thing, and it kind of, I guess, looks weird when you first kind of see it. But I feel it's like a really real part of us, that we have that kind of human intimacy and touch and connection that we don't often get, especially now with lockdown. I was reading I was listening to a podcast recently about a guy called BJ Fogg. I don't know if you heard of him, but he's like a kind of behavioral expert. But yeah, and he's got a lot of ideas about habits and kind of habit changes. And
Okay.
it's something that I've really tried to put in place with my jiu-jitsu and just other parts of my life and health coaching. Um, he used the example of like flossing your teeth and how to kind of build a new habit that a lot of people say, oh, you need to kind of floss your teeth twice a day, spend this time doing it. And a lot of people, when they're first starting out, that's kind of unattainable. They're not going to be able to do it. They haven't got the motivation, whatever it is. So he always says, start really small, create like tiny habits. So just floss like one teeth a night, and then just start with that. And most people think that's silly, but when they've done like one tooth, they'll probably actually, I can do a few more and slowly build it up. And then obviously tie that habit onto something else. So obviously you brush your teeth beforehand, so tie it onto that so you remember to floss it, and then celebrate your small wins, kind of because you come the level is quite low that you're going to do like one tooth a night, and you're probably going to do even more of that and slowly build up. And that's what I found with movement or jiu-jitsu or like health coaching in general is start really, really small. Start with a 5-minute workout, for example, and then some days you might do more, and that's great. But just start really small, build up momentum. I think that helps create discipline, and you kind of see that in other areas of your life. And I think everyone should try some kind of martial art of life. It's a fun way to express themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. And there's like a few layers of like well-being within that practice, right? You've got your community, you've got your sense of feeling more in your body and body confidence and strength and poise, right? And martial arts it is a discipline, and it's very about that sort of internal process of being listening to your own body. I would say
Yeah.
I mean I've not really I practiced some kind of karate when I was a kid,
Oh, nice.
but again I picked it up and dropped it, right? But even with yoga, my teacher, Simon Borg Olivier, he studied with a calligraphy practice. It's a kind of
Mm,
internal martial art, and then he calls yoga an internal martial art because it is very slow and listening to the energy moving in your own body, and that's very much his take on the practice of yoga, which it resonates with me a lot. And I think that same kind of process happens with martial arts, and how amazing that is for people, even that level of vulnerability that you are showing, or
yeah.
and you have a responsibility towards the person you're practicing with as well, right? To
Yeah.
ensure that you're not hurting them, as you
Yeah.
say, or going too far, and really
Yeah.
being in communication with that person on a level beyond sort of language, I suppose, which is
Yeah.
really amazing. And I don't think you probably need to experience it to understand it, even. Like, I don't know what your feelings are on
Yeah.
that.
It's it's something that I talk about a lot. I think people around me get quite sick of it, but it's one thing is it's very real when you go on the mat and you spar with someone. Let's say I submit you or put you in a chokehold, for example. For you to stop it, obviously, before it gets too serious, you would just tap, or your body, or tap the floor, or just say, tap. And it's very real because at that moment it's like one person be one person. You can't like fake it. You can't pretend you're all this, or like I'm amazing at this. It's very much real, and like whatever happens that day, like who won that particular kind of interaction. And to get to the people I've spoken to are black belts, are really high level. To get to where they are, they've had to tap, they've had to fail so many times to get to that, and they're so humble. Um, they're because they've had to just experience so much failure and so much like hardship to get to where they are. And it's like a pyramid. There's so many people who are white belts, and they're going to get slower and less and less and less to get the people who've just had to put in the 10, 20 years and just kept on kind of practicing and kept being humble and kind of haven't still got an ego, but definitely have, like, a lot of people reduce the ego by going to that environment. And just it could be someone who's really small, doesn't look very strong at all, but they could use jiu-jitsu a lot to, with kind of control and leverage, to defeat someone who's much larger than them. And that's what I find really beautiful, that a lot of people who are getting bullied at school or just want to protect themselves learn jiu-jitsu, because it's about controlling the opponent, not necessarily hurting them. And you can definitely use it against a larger, stronger, faster opponent, which I think is really cool to see.
Really interesting. I love that. This is something I've been thinking a lot about lately, this idea of humility and how much it grows in us as we get older because of those knocks that we've taken throughout the life, and and kind of replicating that on a micro level through this practice. You know, same with yoga. You know, you go and you try and you know, not that it's, of course, yoga is not about attaining any kind of physical posture or whatever, but you feel the sort of the, I guess, your body not being able to move in certain ways at a certain point, and then the progress of that, but also the humility that is brought about by the effort of trying something new each time you come onto the mat or experiencing something new. And definitely, yeah, humility in life is something I've just reflect on my own actions and words and conversations on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I always have, but in new ways now as I get older, I'm like, was that compassionate? Was that the best
Mm.
way to show up in that conversation or with that person? And I think that's a really interesting thing. I don't know if you have anything to input on that, or what your experience has been, especially since, you know, this idea of trying something new, especially with your health coaching, you know, basically a whole different sort of career path to
Yeah.
go down,
Yeah.
and even starting a podcast, right? I mean, that's
So,
really interesting. And you know, what inspired that, and you know, to put yourself out there in that way, and it's, you know, quite humbling, no?
yeah, yeah, definitely, completely humbling. I didn't ever think of doing a podcast. I basically just started when I started doing my health coaching qualification. One of the best ways I like to learn, like a lot of people, is to teach other people what I've learned. So I started sending like a 5-10 minute like WhatsApp voice message to just a few friends and family once a week with what I had learned, and that's kind of how it started. I kind of just sent it to a few more people, and then a few friends said, actually, you know, why didn't you turn this into a podcast? And I kind of ignored that quite a bit, and I was just pretty petrified of doing something like that. And then eventually I was in a friend's podcast, and he said afterwards, yeah, you should really kind of do this and make it your own. So it took a lot of other people supporting me and kind of showing me kind of love and really being there. Then eventually kind of put myself out there, because I definitely find that quite a scary experience of kind of, especially with social media and things in general. But I really thought that if I wanted to be a health coach and support other people, that would be a great way to do it, and just get better at communicating myself. There's a lot of, I guess, could be complex ideas and how to make them into an accessible format. I really like the quote, I think it was by Ralph Waldo Emerson, who says, like, do what you're afraid to do. And I really kind of want to embody that and live that, and especially with podcasts, because I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm quite sick of listening to my own voice now, from having to edit all my podcasts and just hearing all of my tics or phrases I say over and over again and things like that. You kind of have to just get over that, and then just put it out there, and realize that for me, the first few podcasts, even now, I've only done like 11 or so. There's going to be mistakes in it. I don't know all the stuff with the sound quality and all that stuff, but eventually, you know, like with jiu-jitsu, things that, you know, start off being a white belt, and eventually going to get better and get better. And the only way to have a really good podcast is to have those episodes at the start where it's going to be not sound great. You're going to maybe, not be great communicating, whatever it is. So it's really been like a lesson in me to really just, if I want to do something, just start it and understand that it's not going to be perfect. Of course not. It's going to be pretty terrible at the start, but you're going to get better at it. And then once, you know, soon you're going to get to a point where you can support other people with that. And it's a great way to connect. Like I found through the podcast, I kind of connect with you and other various people. And you don't know what that thing you put out there is going to mean for the future. I'm sure you've had loads of great experiences and met loads of people through your podcast. And
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's really great. Personally, it's been a really wonderful way for me to have really meaningful and interesting conversations, and being able to like reach out to people and be like, hey, I want to delve deep into some kind of topic with you, and not necessarily being able to do that just as an individual. Like, people would be like, why do you know? But it's been a really great way for me to sort of get into having conversations with people. So that's really cool for me. And like you said, absolutely, there's been huge learning. You know, I obviously came into it with more of a sense of, I was like, I'm really great at asking questions. I really enjoy asking questions. And then initially when I was like listening to the way I formed questions, and even now I still probably struggle with it, but I was just like, oh my God, like you don't I would make them so long-winded and just like just get to the point, like and that's what I've learned over time. It's like just get to the point of what you're trying to say. So that's been a really great learning experience for me. What would you say has been your greatest learning from it so far?
I guess part of it is what I mentioned about just putting myself out there and realizing that I can be quite perfectionist sometimes. There's definitely things in my past, like projects or ideas, where I've thought about doing and haven't done because I'm like, I'm not at the stage yet. I'm not ready to do it, wherever it is. But it's really helped me, I guess, ideas in the future, think about just go and do it, just go and give it a try. And I'd rather do it and fail and then regret it that way rather than not do it at all and then regret it in the future. But why didn't I try that? Why didn't I do this thing with health coaching or podcasts, whatever it is? That's been, I guess, the main thing. And then just I like listening to podcasts and have done for ages. And I think it's really good that so many people love listening to podcasts and really value kind of long form like conversations. Because there's so much in the world that's really short with like videos that just like 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minutes. I think it's nice to have. Obviously, my one's a different kind of concept to your podcast in that it's just at the moment me kind of really explaining ideas to do with health, where it's sleep, movement, gut health, for example. But in the future, I probably want to expand it and do other various things with it. But it's just been great. I've learned a lot from it, and especially with lockdown, it's nice to be able to do this and actually engage with people, as you said, when you haven't got that human connection in the real world at the moment. So it's nice to speak to you and other people and really get to know them, because it's not often in our day-to-day life you sit down with one person for an hour or so and like there's no phones, which I hate when it's sort of, if you go to a restaurant or things, and everyone's got their phone out, and I just really like putting everything away and just really looking someone in the eyes and just like having a meaningful conversation. It's really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Interesting that you said that. Because I'll often start something without any concept of what it's gonna I go into it with like I'm like, yes, I'm gonna do this, it's gonna be fine, and then I'll start and I'll be like, oh God, this is terrible and just like, and then from there I'll start to like refine it. But it's probably good to like that's something I've been learning as well, just take a step back and really think about what you're gonna do and what action you're gonna take, and there's definitely value in that as well. And I learn a lot from people who are more on the side of perfectionism. I think there's some kind of middle ground that I'm trying to get to, right, where you think about things and consider things before you do it, and then I don't know, it's still a learning process for sure. I guess the other thing I'd like to go into, and this, I guess, as you were saying, as this podcast sort of emerged out of lockdown, say, and the value of being creative, and the value of doing something for yourself, even, and in a large part, I did create this podcast for myself as a way to explore a different creative outlet, and to give me some kind of inspiration and something to work towards and look forward to, and like I said, to harass people who I really want to chat to. So what kind of part do you think creativity plays in your life and for other people as well? And not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily have to be a podcast for everyone, but that sort of creative tapping into that as a resource for health and well-being.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, definitely myself included, a while ago, 5-10 years ago, I thought being creative was just about painting art, and I wasn't creative because I didn't do art at school, wherever it was. And then more recently, just realizing that being creative is just to create something, as you said. It could be anything, it doesn't have to necessarily be painting. And I've really found from being more creative and kind of trying to allow time most days to be creative, that I've started to understand who I am, and really know about kind of what I like, what I don't like, and kind of really discover it's fun to be creative. Like the podcast is definitely a big part of that, and my health coaching as well, and just how to design like different programs to support people. And I'd say jujitsu as well. I see that. I mean, the word jujitsu is a Japanese word which means the gentle art, and I see it as an art form because there's so many ways you can interact with someone. and each time you learn a new position, it's kind of putting your spin on it almost, and your body shape, how much, yeah, your strength, your power, and all this different stuff. It's like what a certain move submission I would do very differently to someone else. So it's kind of, yeah, how to be creative in that, and someone else is trying to stop you in that position. So how can you kind of work around that and work with each other's energies? And yeah, more recently I've definitely got into like more like painting, origami, something I really like to do. So I'm trying to do that, and I often for like birthdays things that will make some various origami kind of animal and that various thing. I find that quite mindful in itself. But yeah, I think it's really important to have some time um, during the day, like morning or evening, whatever it is, just to really kind of be by yourself and focus on being creative and just, yeah, having fun with it.
Yeah, and you said
I,
earlier. Oh, sorry to interrupt
no, no,
you.
yeah, finished, yeah.
You said earlier about writing and that being an outlet for you as well, and that's a beautiful creative outlet. And people forget that's such an easy resource. You just like, journaling has become really popular in the world of well-being, and yeah, just pen and paper and just writing down your thoughts. That is a way to be creative in a sense, and I think that's really really important to, I think, for people to realize that there's so much at hand that you could do. Origami is a great one.
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you
I
can,
love
if you have the patience for it.
it. It's taken
um
a while, yeah.
Sorry, say that again. It's
I
just
think
like,
it took a long while. Like I'm not very good at origami, but it's taken a long while to try. And yeah, I've got like swans, frogs, Christmas trees is my newest one. That was quite a hard one to do for last Christmas. But yeah.
nice. With jujitsu, I heard that there's a practice that at the end of it, like you will massage each other as a way to like relax muscles, and I heard that and I was like, what an amazing concept. I don't know if this is true for all jujitsu styles or practices,
Yeah.
but I was like, why is that not a thing in all like exercise practices, that
Yeah.
we do an exercise and then afterwards, if you're doing it with like partner, you do these like massages either to your partner or to yourself even. Like, how is that not integrated in all exercise? It makes so much sense.
I think that'd be incredible. I think same with like yoga and having a shavasana, having some kind of resting point in the end. It's so normal in yoga, when you go to another exercise class and you finish and you just go straight away to you finish in the end, go to the shower, whatever it is. And it's so nice with yoga having that kind of part at the end, like 5-10 minutes, where you just get to like really reconnect with your body. That I definitely miss in other, yeah, various sports I do. But with the massage, we don't do that where I train jiu-jitsu. I'm sure maybe in more traditional schools, because where I train, we don't wear like a gi, like kind of white pajamas. We kind of just
Okay.
wear shorts and t-shirt. It's whatever you want to wear. So I guess it's more applicable to like mixed martial arts and things like that. So I think maybe more traditional schools, they might do something like that. But I definitely feel in just general training, I feel like I'm getting almost like a Thai yoga massage, just because of the ways I've been like put and constricted. If someone's like pushing the whole weight onto your maybe your hips and then moving your legs one way, and yet they're kind of like moving your spine a little bit. So I guess you're kind of put. They always say you should get mobile and in all different areas of your body, because you're going to get put in that position whether you like it or not in jiu-jitsu. And that's why I kind of from jiu-jitsu really started to explore yoga and things like that. I've definitely seen the benefits, and I've definitely a lot of people at my gym now kind of understand yoga and really trying to practice that on a kind of weekly basis, because they understand how much it can, yeah, help. And breath would be the main thing. A lot of times if you're in a certain position, I guess anything like running or whatever it is, you can kind of quite easily just breathe through your mouth and have quite panic breathing. But through yoga and just trying to breathe through the nose more and relax, I can last longer and just be, yeah, in a more kind of calm state. So yeah, yoga's definitely been a big influence in martial arts, I think.
Yeah, amazing. I think I've listened to a few of your podcast episodes now, and
Right.
I really love it. It's really lovely, just bite size, really listenable, uh, really informative and helpful. Just things that you can apply to your life, like in that instant. Like a lot of the times you'll actually talk about a practice, or you'll talk us through a practice in the podcast. Like I think you were doing box breathing in one, and
Yeah.
just it's really really great. And I wonder if you could, is it just that you were like, okay, I want to give people like the information they can put into use like right now, and how did you come up with that concept? Or
Yeah, I didn't know how to kind of structure. I knew at the start I wanted to just be quite, you said, quite bite-sized, like 10 minutes long, so a lot of people could easily, I guess, understand it and kind of use it in their life. And then I guess the title of my podcast is The Practice of Health. So I really wanted, there's a lot of theories out there, but as you used to mention before, it's about really testing out and experimenting in your own life. So that's what I really want to do, is each topic you'd have, I guess, explain it. For example, movement, for example, and then at the end you have a few practices, a few ways you can explore that in your own life, and kind of really take on board what works for you and disregard what doesn't work, and kind of make it your own. So it's definitely been a learning curve, and I really enjoy it. And it's yeah, I feel it's a good way for people in the future to kind of find out about where health coaching is, and really
Yeah.
explore the areas, and just kind of give something back to, because the people that have supported me over the years. And it's just a really fun thing to do, and really enjoy it. So
There's a really, you said something about teach people the principles, not the exact things. So you can, did I lose you? Ah. Oh, there you are. Sorry.
yeah, all right,
Lost you there for a second.
we're back,
Yes. I don't know if I'll just say it again. So
yeah.
in one of the episodes, I this really resonated, and I thought it kind of summarized the way you put the podcast together. It's to teach people the principles, not the, I wish I
Method.
could, yes, not the method. Yes. And that I think that's really valuable. And I think that really comes across, and you're doing a really great job at doing that. So it's brilliant.
Thank you.
So one of the questions that I ask everybody who comes on the show, and it basically just comes from the title of the show and my business, is, what does it mean to you to live well?
For me, I've found over the years that it's supporting other people is what really helps me and gives me purpose and excites me. I'm lucky that I found something now with health coaching that I kind of use that as a kind of a platform, a vehicle to help other people. I guess the other side of that is kind of practicing what I teach, and really focusing on my own health as well every day, to make sure that I'm being, the healthiest version of myself, and like from that I can support other people. But yeah, I think the main thing for me be supporting other people. That really gives me purpose, and makes me want to keep on doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's cool. I it's so interesting. It's come up for me a couple of times, and that people probably have this idea that, as a health coach or as a yoga teacher or massage therapist, people that are involved in health, that every day you're living your best life and you're doing
Yeah.
all the things that you preach, right? But I
Yeah.
I, I think it's really important to just put across that that isn't necessarily always true, and that we all are just a work in progress, and some days you'll have really great days of doing all your practices, get up,
Yeah.
do your meditation, go for your run, do your yoga practice, and
Yeah.
in an ideal world. But that isn't always the case, and I think, yeah, just making that effort to floss one tooth a day, as you
Yeah.
as you said, that's, I think that's a really key thing to put across.
Yeah.
And my final question, because I am sure people will want to know and find out more, is, where can they find you and listen to your podcast as well?
Yeah, thank you. So the main way at the moment is just to find me on Instagram. So I'm at Charlie Tunmore, so Tunmore. You can find out everything I'm doing, my kind of health coaching, and message me on there if you want to know more about it. And then also there's a link in my bio for the Practice of Health podcast, so you can find more about it then. It's obviously on all various podcast platforms. So yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Charlie, thank you so much for coming and chatting to me on the show today. It was an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to see where you go with it all.
Thank you so much, Anna Maria. Yeah, it's been an honor as well. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks so much.
Cool. I'll just stop the recording. If you'd like to find out more about Charlie and his journey, you can follow him over on Instagram at Charlie Tunmore, where you'll find all the links to his podcast, Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play. I just want to say a massive thank you to you for tuning into this week's show. Your support means everything. If you found this useful or helpful, please make sure you share it on as well. Like, subscribe, drop me a comment. I love hearing from you. I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are. Be well.